Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining the webinar. Today, we will be discussing Cirrus, our high-resolution data subscription service. This service enables you to design, deploy, or optimize networks of any kind, as well as provides a valuable return on your engineering time. In a minute, I'll be turning things over to Bob Akins, who will be discussing the data service and how it is used in SignalPro, and also some business use cases for how to utilize the service. After the presentation, we'll also be taking some questions, so feel free at any time to type in your questions that you may have into the GoToWebinar panel on your screen. And with that, I will turn things over to Bob.
Well, thank you, Rory, and thank you all very much. Everybody who has taken the time to attend this presentation. It's really appreciated. And as Rory said, today I'm going to be discussing our high-resolution data subscription service, Cirrus. But first, to discuss the value of Cirrus, I believe we have to touch on data in general, because historically, the topic of data has been one of those that can be a bit nebulous. And that may actually be the best case scenario. The worst case is it can lead to a series of aggravations when you find yourself dealing with a database that isn't really reflective of the service area it's depicting. And you're stuck spending all of your time trying to convert and massage this database into something that's actually usable, with even more manipulation of your project coming on the back end to get reliable study results. Now, it wasn't all that long ago in the industry that I feel like there was a large and collective shrug of, well, it is what it is around the concept of data. So obviously there was a problem, and it was one we wanted to solve by offering accurate, high-resolution, custom data for any location in which you may be planning and deploying networks, by making this data accessible instantly, and to do so at an affordable price. And so we launched Cirrus, our high-resolution data subscription service. The more customers we have worked with in this endeavor, we have also found that this solution has not only its obvious value in providing an accurate model of your service area, and hence more reliable and accurate study results, but to have instant access to high-resolution data also greatly affects productivity, responsiveness, and can even greatly impact your sales and your firm's bottom line. In this webinar, I want to explain not only the data offering of Cirrus, but run through the business case for utilizing the service. So, Cirrus offers instant access to global data. It is a complete solution that includes high-resolution clutter, terrain, 2D vectors that depict roads, railways, and waterway polygons, as well as demographics. The data is procured through our annual subscription service for short or long-term projects and can be used in existing or new SignalPro projects. But, first of all, before getting into the details of Cirrus, I think it's worthwhile to take a step back, start at the beginning, and address the questions: what are land use and terrain databases? Why are they needed in SignalPro, and how do I use them? Now, this isn't a technical discussion, and I won't get too far into the weeds with this. And please do bear with me, as I realize a lot of this may already be obvious. But I want to make sure we're all speaking the same language and are on the same page before I get into specific use and business cases with the Cirrus data service. So today, if you use SignalPro, typically the first step to setting up a project and running a study is to create a model of your service area environment, so the characteristics of the service area are taken into account when things like RF, path loss, and signal strength are being analyzed within the environment. There's different databases one can use in the creation of the model, but at a minimum, you're going to want terrain elevation and land use, also known as clutter data. The terrain elevation databases are just that, they show the elevation. The land use data depicts different land use categories and assigns an attenuation value to each. So, for example, there might be a category called suburban, which will affect propagation differently than the category of industrial. Or, for example, an open water category, which would have very little or no effect on the propagation. Now, as we all know, and as I've probably already mentioned a couple of times and may say a few more times throughout this presentation, there are many challenges when it comes to land use data. It can be difficult to find an accurate database that we don't have to spend a lot of time converting, carving, or otherwise manipulating into something that's usable. If we don't want to deal with all of that heartache, we may look for a custom database. A custom database can meet our needs, sure, but a database that's specific to RF and wireless network planning can be difficult to find. And perhaps more importantly, a custom high-resolution accurate database can get very costly, sometimes astronomically so. And then, as if all of this weren't enough, even if we do decide to spring for one of these expensive custom databases, or we have a project to justify the cost, it wouldn't be unreasonable to think the delivery of such a database could take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, or longer, who knows? And when we're planning networks that require answers now, or trying to meet customer demand, or respond to an RFP that's due in a matter of days, where does that leave us? So Cirrus addresses all of this by offering instant access to high-resolution custom data. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the specifics of how Cirrus is dealing with these very big concerns, data accuracy and access, and how addressing them saves you engineering time and increases your bottom line. So this is Tile Selector. This is the application that you use to access the Cirrus data service. As you can see, it is simply a map in which you click on tiles that cover the geographic regions of need. After doing so, the program shows you a list of the database layers that are available for that particular area. You simply choose the data needed, download it, and you're ready to go. Also, if you have a Google Earth polygon that depicts a service area, you can import that directly into Tile Selector, and it will automatically highlight the data tiles needed to cover your area. You can drill down into Tile Selector and choose data by county or other smaller regions you may need. You'll see here, and it's important to note that I have been focusing primarily on clutter data because frankly, that is the most important piece of the puzzle. But again, Cirrus is a complete database solution that also includes high-resolution terrain, 2D vectors, as well as demographics. And you may have seen that in the Tile Selector menu a second ago. So in seeing the Tile Selector program in action here, you can see just how easy it is to access this high-resolution data. There are some really obvious benefits. Imagine a scenario where a potential customer calls with an immediate need, is dealing with a problem in a network, or is making a decision on a proposed contract. You will be able to serve the customer immediately since you have access to data for any potential service area they may throw at you. This has helped many of our customers have a competitive advantage and secure more business because, of course, a potential customer under pressure may simply move on to the next vendor or consultant if you are unable to provide answers within their time frame. I would also submit that quick turnaround times helps with customer retention. And I can tell you without a doubt that one of the biggest factors end users weigh when considering bringing network design in-house or relying on vendors and consultants is turnaround time on design needs. Because, of course, a lot of these customers have existing networks in which they could be experiencing performance issues. That sort of problem typically requires a higher level of responsiveness than that of an upcoming new network deployment. Another thing we've discovered in working with customers using Cirrus is their responsiveness to RFPs. Because the unfortunate reality is there are many times in which you do not have as much advance notice as you may like for an RFP. You might only become aware of it a matter of weeks or days before a response is due. Cirrus helps immensely in responding to these RFPs as you don't have to spend time researching data, sourcing it, potentially converting it and such. Now to take this a step further, there may even potentially be RFPs that we don't respond to at all because we just simply don't have enough time. Not to get too far off track here, but if we follow this thought through, we can see there is more factors than just access to data, which may stifle our responsiveness to RFPs. Things like access to SignalPro licensing, technology-specific modules, and training on properly using these tools. So this is something we are well aware of and leads to some product offerings and services that are outside the scope of this particular webinar. But we are working towards demand-based licensing of SignalPro to enable you in scenarios such as this. And I encourage anyone who is interested in learning more to contact us after the presentation. But I want to get very specific for a minute on the idea of instant access to data, because although hybrid data in the Cirrus service have been around for several years, it is still quite a different concept than what most of us are used to, because historically, most of us have downloaded data and gone through a painful conversion process. The USGS site being a well-known and common example of this. In working with our customers, we have found that on average, those that use the USGS data from that site are spending about 1 man-day per service area on each database, because you have to download, reproject the data, and convert it for use in SignalPro. So to get both clutter and terrain data for one project, you'd be looking at 2 man-days. A service area Cirrus subscription starts at just $500 per year. So in this instance, you'd be looking at a return on investment of at least 4 to 5 times. And these 2 man-days are really a best case scenario, because there's also cost in having the software to reproject the data. You have to have the knowledge to perform the reprojection and the conversion, which can mean training and the associated training cost. And of course, you have to hope that something doesn't go wrong in the conversion and you have to start all over again. Dare I say that all of us who have tried to download and convert the USGS data have experienced that pain. And of course, all of that is just to download and convert the data into something that can be brought into SignalPro. That's not speaking at all to the accuracy and the resolution of the data. Since we've been talking about the USGS data, I'll tell you that it has many issues. Resolution, accuracy, and it's very outdated. The most current USGS release is from 2011. Their 2016 release is supposed to become available in May or June, although that date has been pushed several times already, so who knows. So with that, I'm going to dig a little bit into the accuracy and resolution of the data in Cirrus. So the clutter data available in Cirrus is 1 meter to 30 meter hybrid data. It is made up of various sources to provide the most accurate and highest resolution data in the areas where it's most needed. What this means is you are going to see 1 meter resolution data in the dense urban types of areas and 30 meter resolution out in the rural areas where high resolution data is not critical. One of the ideas of the hybrid data is providing very high resolution data only where it is needed, which means it comes at a much more affordable price point. Because if you were to purchase 1 meter resolution databases today, it can get extraordinarily costly. The paradox is if you purchase one of these costly databases, they may not even provide that much value for a large chunk of the service area. Because if you have a rural environment with large fields and such, there's just no value in having a 1 meter database over a 30 meter. In fact, in many areas, you may not even see any difference in the databases at all. Another huge value of the hybrid data is it's updated regularly, so you always have the most current information available. This is in contrast to purchasing a costly database and running the risk of having it be outdated in a couple of years if an area gets heavily developed. So what's on the screen now is an example of the USGS data versus the hybrid data for an area in Cincinnati. The difference is apparent when you see the detail of the Cirrus data, in which you can even see buildings and street footprints. Another thing that speaks to the accuracy of the Cirrus data is it's custom and specific to RF and wireless network planning. When we compare that again to the USGS data, that gets used in a lot of different applications. Hydrology and biological diversity studies are a couple of examples. So when the USGS creates this data, they actually have 99 different land use categories, the vast majority of which have absolutely nothing to do with RF. So they end up kind of cramming these categories down into 10 that are deemed relevant. And so you end up with several different areas all being classified the same. As you can see in this example, for an area around Eugene, Oregon, a railway and a parking lot are being classified the same as is a park with other distinctive areas of the hybrid clutter. Obviously, in the real world, propagation will behave much differently in these areas. Since the hybrid data offers much more detail and accuracy, you are going to get more accuracy out of your study results, hence a better network design. In the past, if you were using the USGS data or other data with inaccuracies like this, one thing that you might do is carve the clutter. And indeed, EDX software has always provided users with a clutter carving tool in which you can take these databases and carve out streets and such so that you can add at least some level of accuracy to a flawed database. Of course, no matter how much carving you do, you're only going to be able to get the data so good. It's going to cause you a lot of stress, and more to the point, you are wasting engineering time on a problem that doesn't need to be solved because we have the high resolution data available. So let's take a look at how much time is spent carving clutter on a typical project and what that means for our business. So when we work with customers, what we found is that on average, carving USGS data will take 15 minutes per site. For the typical small network design consisting of 20 sites, This represents $750 in total engineering dollars, assuming a billable rate of $150 per hour. As mentioned before, the service area subscriptions to Cirrus Data starts at $500, so you're already seeing a positive return by subscribing. And what's really interesting is that the engineering time saved when you perform 3 such project designs is good enough to complete a whole nother project, so 4 for the price of 3 using Cirrus. In other words, if you perform 3 or more even small project designs in 1 year, you will achieve a great return on investment by utilizing Cirrus. Again, this is in addition to the time spent downloading and converting the data that we spoke about. By the time you factor in everything, you could easily be 4 days deep in downloading, converting, and carving data, making it usable. So Cirrus saves not only engineering billable hours as demonstrated, but bottom line dollars as well. So if you happen to be one of those people for whom saving money is good, then the subscription-based model should be especially appealing because you don't have to shell out a bunch of money to purchase a database that you need only for a short time. You can subscribe to just the service area you need for both short-term and long-term projects. And we have different subscription levels. You can subscribe to data for the entire US, the entire globe, or just a particular service area by square degree tile. We also have per state pricing applicable to those states that are large enough that the per tile price would not be cost feasible. We also have all of Canada covered now, south of 70 degrees north, so you can subscribe to all of Canada. The international data is continually being improved upon. As a matter of fact, our most recent Cirrus update contained a lot of coverage for many new international cities. Cirrus is very easy to use. If you've ever loaded any database into SignalPro before, you can use Cirrus. If you're a brand new user, we have plenty of documentation, and of course myself and our support staff can help get you up and running. Anyone with SignalPro and an active support maintenance agreement can utilize Cirrus data for both existing projects or new ones. I've really stressed the idea of instant access to the data through Tile Selector, but we do have customers with no internet access, and we could still ship data on physical media if that is something that is needed. We also work with many data providers that can still procure databases outside of the Cirrus offering, things like 3D building and vegetation polygons, clutter heights, and so forth. So if your project calls for something like that, please do give us a call. And that's about it. The very quick rundown of Cirrus, why it's valuable, the high-resolution data subscription service that provides complete global data on demand for short and long-term projects, enabling you to recover lost engineering time and grow sales. And also, before I get into questions, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that EDX will be at the IWCU show in Las Vegas next month, so please do stop by our booth. Feel free to reach out to me if you want to arrange a specific time to meet if you're going to be in Vegas. We'd be more than happy to show you Cirrus, discuss our latest product offerings, see how they may be helpful to you, go through anything else that you may want to. So I appreciate everybody's time and attention, and hopefully there's been some questions. If not, feel free to go ahead and type them into the panel now, and I will take the time to answer any of those.
Yeah, Bob. So I think there are a couple of questions here, and I'll just throw them out there for you to answer. So one question that came in, is Cirrus being used today? And if so, what applications is Cirrus being used in?
Yeah, so Cirrus as a data subscription service has been around for a couple of years now, and there's many customers that are utilizing the service now and have found value in it. It's used in a lot of different applications, pretty much any kind of application, but one thing that I always want to stress is we saw the one slide that had an example of the hybrid clutter for that area in Cincinnati, and what we saw in that example was the building footprints, the streets, things of that nature. So data with that high of resolution and accuracy are particularly valuable when we're dealing with networks that have transmitters and antennas that are low to the ground, because if you're working on a smart grid AMI network, for example, or something else that has antennas that are at street level or pole level or something like this, obviously signals are going to be affected greatly by localized physical characteristics of the environment. So it becomes very, very important to model those accurately. Also, the hybrid data has been around for a while. Yeah, these are not necessarily new items. They've been used and tested and evaluated and tried and true solution. So.
Okay, perfect. And another one that just popped in here. So does Cirrus come with an attenuation file for specific clutter categories?
Yeah, so when you utilize the Cirrus data, the hybrid data, it does come with the attenuation file. That kind of goes to some of the points I was raising earlier about accuracy and the fact that this data is custom to RF planning. So the Cirrus data typically comes with an attenuation file that has 36 different land use categories that, again, are deemed most relevant to wireless network planning and RF propagation analysis, things of this nature. Of course, you know, if you've used SignalPro before and done any kind of tuning, you know that SignalPro has a lot of different features for model tuning, and you can certainly use the Cirrus data and the Cirrus attenuation file in that manner as well. Of course, we have auto tuning features available in SignalPro, and not to get too far off topic, but in a fairly recent release, we also had auto tuning added for clutter pass-through loss. So that's another really valuable feature that could be utilized in conjunction with the Cirrus data. That's probably a whole other topic. If anyone else is interested in that, please do give me a call. We can go through some of that application as well.
Okay. So if someone were to subscribe to the entire globe, is that something that they would have to download all at the same time?
Right. No. If you go for an entire global subscription of the Cirrus data, you have all of that available at your fingertips to download pretty much whenever you want in any capacity that you want. So if you recall the tile selector application that we saw in one of the slides, you know, that was basically the map of the globe divided into tiles that you could download. So if you subscribe to the globe again, you have all of that available, but if you only need one particular area, you know, you would simply go into tile selector, you would click on that area that you needed and download it. But again, if you had the global subscription, then the entire globe would be available to you whenever you did need it.
Okay. And another one here, can you use Cirrus data outside of the network?
Yeah, so one of the things with the Cirrus data that I often stress is that it's another option that's available to you. I want everyone to know that it's easy to use. If you are a current SignalPro user and if you've used databases before, you can use Cirrus. It's used in the same fashion. You know, you would go into SignalPro, configure your databases. You would just point to the Cirrus data as opposed to USGS data or whatever you're using today. So in that sense, you can use it similarly to data that you have now, in that, you know, if you were using the tile selector, for example, and you needed one service area, you could download it locally to your machine, and then you can use it, you know, if you're on the road or wherever you may go out in the field, things like that. Also, the tile selector, this may not be a direct answer to the question, but I feel like it's at least related and certainly worth pointing out. With the tile selector program now, you know, you'd be able to utilize an internet connection even if you were on the road. You know, if you're in the hotel and something comes up in the middle of the night, or, you know, an urgent request from a customer or an RFP, you know, using the tile selector, you have instant access to data pretty much wherever you are. So yeah, you don't have to be on the network or in the office. You should be able to use the data anywhere.
Perfect. And how will Cirrus help with some of the emerging technologies that are coming out?
Right. So one thing that we've noticed in working with our customers in some of the emerging technologies that are coming out, a lot of consultants, a lot of firms may wish to explore going after some of the market for some of these emerging technologies, or see if their business can expand into these new areas that maybe they have not necessarily worked in before. So number one is Cirrus kind of helps in that regard, in that it's such a small investment. Again, the service area data subscription start at just $500. So let's say, for example, your firm is thinking about perhaps trying to get business into a new emerging technology or an industry that you haven't worked in before. I mean, in that sense, for $500, you can get a tile and try it out and see if you're able to perform studies that would be applicable to this new market that you're going after. So we kind of see it as a low risk, low investment, worst case scenario. In that example I just gave, is that you're out $500, as opposed to, the current paradigm with data is that you have to spend a lot of money for these high resolution databases. Also, we're looking at kind of expanding some of our products and service offerings, as I kind of hinted at earlier. And again, this is a little off topic, but if this sounds appealing to anybody, they should definitely give me a call after this presentation. And that we want to be able to offer our customers project-based licensing for some of these new emerging technologies that are coming out. And one piece of that would be offering training. So, trying to maybe change the idea of having to purchase SignalPro licensing and modules and things like this just to go after a new emerging technology. We want to make it to where now there's a project demand-based licensing, and maybe you could use SignalPro and the modules for a month, and that might include Cirrus data and training and things like that. So that's kind of the long answer to the question about emerging technologies. Is there anything else?
Yeah. So another question that just came in here. So with the Cirrus data, how do you sort of define the data that you're downloading? Right? Are there different levels of subscription as far as the service area? Like there's the global subscription, but how else would you define those different regions that might be available for purchase?
Right. So, the price book subscription levels are global, all of US, states, or by service area. So, a lot of customers, typically what will happen is customers will send me a Google Earth polygon, if it's just a particular service area that can't be defined by the entire US or an entire state or something like this, and we could see how many tiles it is. Also, the tile selector is an application that I can send to people to download on their machine. They don't even need to be a current Cirrus customer. And you can kind of see, what you might need to subscribe to cover a particular service area. So the square degree tile, again, that's where it starts. That's the smallest area. But, like I said, a lot of customers work by county. They'll say, I need Lake County, for example, and we'll just see what tile covers that area.
Right. Okay. And so out of that, it looks like I think that's most of the questions, or all the questions that I had come in on my side. Did you see any on yours, Bob, that you wanted to that you were able to answer?
No, I mean, I think that's all the questions that I am aware of. But
Okay.
Certainly we're available, and on the screen is my contact information. And you can contact myself or anyone else at EDX if you wish to discuss Cirrus in more depth. We could also provide an online demonstration of how the data looks for a particular service area, go over the business cases, how it might be applicable, how it might save your business money, engineering time, things like that. I'm happy to discuss any of that with anybody. So definitely reach out anytime.
Perfect. So it looks like we're done answering questions. Bob, any parting notes?
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate everybody's time, and we'll talk again soon.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone, for joining the webinar, and we will definitely be here for you if you need anything, and Bob's contact information is right there on the screen. So thanks again for joining, and have a wonderful day.